We force kids to comply to our rules without a whole lot of conversation about why. We're just told, if you don't do that, you're going to be punished. I'm not saying you can't hang around with the people you grew up with, but once you choose, I'm gonna go live a different life, they've gotta either come with you or you have to drop them off and leave you behind. Love yourself more and do something today that is evidence of self-love.
Listen, y'all, we're back with another episode. This is Express Yourself Black Man Podcast. We are here with a very, very special guest, but before we talk about the special guest that we're here with, I want to talk to you guys real quick. So for those of you that are new to the podcast, thank you for tapping in. Whether somebody shared it with you or you just clicked on it through YouTube or podcast or whatever outlet that you're listening on, we're appreciative because every new listener brings us closer to helping a black man to heal. And for those of you that are sharing, reposting, liking, commenting, and supporting in various formats, we're appreciative as well. So if this episode resonates with you, if the title has resonated with you, if you have seen previous episodes that have resonated with you, please continue to share it with a black man, black woman, black person that you feel like could find value from the conversation. Because what we're going to be talking about today is a lot of healing. I'm talking about a lot of the things that we go through that we don't normally open up and talk about. And the whole goal of this platform is to help black men to heal and ultimately help black men to win. And with that being said, we have a guest here today, Elliot. Elliot, my brother, first of all, before we get started and we talk about all the things, can you tell the people how you're doing and then what it is that you do in the first place?
Well, first of all, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And what I do is I am a psychotherapist.
Okay.
I'm a licensed psychotherapist. Been practicing psychotherapy almost 20 years, right at 20 years. Mm-hmm. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I like to give lectures.
Okay.
I'm a podcast host. I do a lot of things.
Yeah, and like I was telling you earlier, man, I'll say it again. I am very excited for this episode, bro. I'm very excited because I feel like we have a really good, well-rounded, like, conversation or different topics that we're gonna be tapping on.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So my first question to you is about your upbringing. So can you take people through what it was like? Because I know you had somewhat of a tumultuous, like, upbringing. Can you talk about, like, your relationship with your father?
It was hell. It was hell. I think, growing up in an environment, every kid, man, you just want to be, like, accepted, praised, loved. And I was just like that. I was just like every kid. I just want to be accepted, praised, and loved. And my dad, and he had some trauma in his background that I think, now looking back and knowing what I know about, dynamics and relationships and human behavior, obviously I didn't know that as a kid, but my father, I think he parented from a place of fear, of abandonment. I think he didn't really know how to love. I think in our culture, specifically like black culture, like urban culture, I think we confuse respect and fear. And I think my dad wanted to raise kids that were afraid of him because I think he confused fear with respect. And it was a very, very difficult environment to grow in. He was angry a lot. He was physical a lot. He was physical with my mom at times. And, it's weird. You grow up in a house like that and you just think it's normal. Like if you were raised in a home and, every Tuesday you eat Brussels sprouts, and that's how it was from birth, you just think every house, every Tuesday they eat Brussels sprouts. That's how you think. And then you go to school when you're like 5 and you start hearing other people don't eat Brussels sprouts and other people don't do what you do. And you're like, and I remember clearly going to school and getting a bad report card. I was probably in like the 2nd grade, I was young.
Yeah. And
I was scared to death to bring that report card home. And I remember looking at some of the people around me and they were like, oh, I'm going to hang out with my friends this weekend. I was like, your report card worse than mine. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But I share that part because I think the gift of my childhood was when I learned that not every house was like this, it started making me think. It started making me wonder, like, why is my home this way? And why are other people's homes not this way? And I tell people, I always knew there was something. I didn't know what was right, but I always knew there was something off. And for that, I'm glad for the childhood I had, because it made me sit and think and sit and ponder. It made me worry or wonder about healing. It made me think about health in a different way. It just made me think about relationship dynamics. And I mean, those things started fascinating me at a very young age, because I knew the things going on in my house are abnormal. They don't seem to be going on in other people's homes. And it made me desirous of trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and I want to go back to something you said earlier, which was very, very important that I don't want to miss. So there's a couple of things. One, you talk about respect versus fear.
Yeah.
You also talk about your dad being physical with your mom. So I want to talk about the respect versus fear.
Right.
What do you mean by that? Because I feel like a lot of parents, and I've had conversations with a lot of different parents, and it mainly comes from men that believe that, like, fear is a healthy part of parenting. Like, your child needs to fear you.
Right.
So what do you say to that? And what do you think your dad struggled with when it came to, like, respect versus fear?
I think that's terrible, man. And if there's one thing that I hope we can accomplish in this interview, is to dispel a few myths about Black culture. Because I think, and first of all, let's talk about culture for a second. Like, the way culture works is we pass down habits, behaviors, and traits from one generation to the next. And then we just carry those things on. And I think that's wonderful. I think it's amazing. But I also think we need to do it with some thought. And I think when I was growing up, my dad really wanted to, I remember one time overhearing my mother and father argue, which was a very common thing in my house. And my mother said to my father, if you don't stop doing these things, they're going to fear you. And my dad said, good, that's exactly what I want them to do. But let me tell you why fear is such a dangerous thing compared to respect. Now, if I look at you as my dad, and I respect you, I respect your opinion, I respect the way you go about your business, I respect the way you think, and I have nothing but respect for you. When I'm 12 years old and I go to school, and I'll never forget this happened. I was a little younger than 12. I was probably 11. And I remember walking to school, and a bunch of kids ran up to me and they were like, yo, we're skipping school today. You want to skip with us? And I was like, nah, I don't want to skip with y'all. And they were like, we found wine coolers. Like, so-and-so's dad, we found where he had hid his wine coolers. We're gonna skip school and go drink wine coolers. You want to come with us? And I was like, nah, man, I ain't gonna do that. Y'all have fun. Good luck. And I went to school. Those kids were like the most popular kids in school. And they started, I don't want to say picking on me. That ain't the right word, but they didn't like that I didn't join them on that day. But because I was afraid of my father, I never went home and talked to him about it. I didn't go home and say to him, like, man, I had this hard choice. Because I was literally afraid that he was going to physically punish me for having the kind of friends that would skip school. And that might sound stupid, but I had been physically punished for things my friends had done previously. I'd been physically punished for things my cousins had done previously. So here I am looking back, what is a positive decision, 11-year-old kid deciding not to skip school. But because I was afraid of him, I couldn't talk to him about what was going on that day and then subsequent days when me and those kids had issues. And think about, so that's just one instance. Think about all the things that I could have come home and talked to him about.
Right.
Ask him for guidance, feedback, suggestions that I never talked to him about because I was afraid of judgment, physical punishment. I was afraid of some form of retribution. And I think respect is very different. Because respect, now there's a component of fear to respect, I suppose. Like, I don't want to, like, let this person down. That's a different fear than, like, I don't want to be physically punished. But respect is more about, like, I value you. And because I value you, I want to come to you for guidance, feedback, and suggestions. And I did not have that. And I verbally heard my father confirm, I want children that are afraid of me. I think in our society, and I get killed online for saying this, but it is true. And I will say very clearly, I've never said this on a podcast before. I get interviewed all the time. I will say this very clearly. You don't have to like what I say, but I'm a very credible source to say it. I've been studying human behavior since I was 17 years old. I went to college at 17. My major was psychology. I walked into a psychology class and started studying human behavior all the way through, and now I'm a practicing psychotherapist for nearly 20 years. So argue with me if you want to, but acknowledge I'm a very credible source to say the things I'm saying. So when I talk about our culture and I talk about human behavior, it's a very, very common thing that we force kids to comply to our rules without a whole lot of conversation about why. Without a whole lot of conversation about why it's important to do chores and why it's important to follow household rules and why discipline is important. We're just told if you don't do that, you are going to be punished. Like I can remember my grandmother, man. My grandmother's one of the most important people in my life. I think my grandmother, I highest regard, absolute highest regard. My grandmother in Chicago, was born in Chicago. When I was around 4, we moved to Boston. But every summer I go stay with my grandma until sports took over my life. And there was a room in my grandmother's house that children were not allowed into.
Okay. Like
literally, you can't step over the threshold of this room. All of the furniture in that room was covered in plastic. There was a cabinet in that room that I now realize there's alcohol in there. I didn't know what it was at the time. But my grandmother would just, you can't go in there. And we knew if you cross that line, she's going to kill you. But she never talked to me about why that was important. She never talked to me about why it's important to follow rules. And I think the greatest thing you can do with your children is to converse, like talk to them, teach them why these things are important. You can still punish them. You can still parent them. Like I'm not saying accept child behavior, but I am saying like your job is to educate your children, not to just force compliance. And I think that's what we did.
Yeah, I like the fact that you talked about educating children, because I was going to ask you the question as to why, even explaining why is important with kids.
Yeah.
Is there any and if you don't have it, it's fine. But is there, since you're so well studied, is there any credible research or sources or anything that you can cite that show why that's important versus a child that's has to force compliance, whether it be through attachment styles or just behavior patterns as they get older or anything like that?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure of any specific research that is done on child rearing cross cultures.
Okay.
There's a lot of studies that are done on child rearing, and we know kids who do chores in their younger years perform better as adults on the job. We know that the number one thing you can do as a family, literally, if you want to ensure your child is a productive member of society, the number one thing you can do as a family is have family meals routinely.
Really?
Number one thing. There's a ton of research about that. If you want to produce a child that is functioning as an adult properly, the greatest thing you can do to contribute to that is have family meals routinely.
Why is that?
Connection.
Okay.
Connection.
Yeah.
You form a relationship, and while you're having the family meals, you converse, and how was your day? And you have all of these conversations, which I think is harder today now, because it's so easy for everybody to go eat in different corners of the house, and everybody is on their own device watching their own show. I'm old enough that me and my mother and my 2 brothers, my parents divorced when I was young. I shouldn't say that. They separated when I was young. The divorce took a whole lot longer. So my dad always lived someplace else. He was always around, but he lived someplace else. And I'm old enough to remember that my brothers and I, we had to negotiate what we were going to watch on television because there was only one television. We lived in a small place, so we ate our meals in the same place because there was one place for us to eat. And in society now, everybody's got their own device, so they can go eat. But if you want to have the greatest odds that your child grow up and be an effective adult, have family meals routinely.
I like that a lot because I had that a lot growing up with my family, and I know what that dinner table is like.
Right.
You end up talking about a variety of different things, things that happen throughout the day, things that if your parents allow it, right? It depends. The parents actually have to be open and receptive to having a conversation, but my parents were receptive to actually having a conversation. And one of the things my dad and I always did growing up was we used to play ping pong a lot. And ping pong, and I know it's interesting because ping pong, I learned so much about life through playing ping pong with my dad. Like, honestly, like, so we would play ping pong together, and my dad is the type of person that he would never let me win. Now, he's not the type of dad that's like, okay, I want you to get a quick win to get a confidence boost. No. If he's playing me full capacity. If I'm winning, he's trying everything in the book to make sure that he can win. Whether it's yelling, whatever. Nothing cheating.
Right.
But like he's actually
trying to win.
Yes, he's trying to win. And what it taught me through that was that in life, everybody's trying to win, and there's going to be adversity that you have to go through, that you have to navigate. And I'm connecting that back to the conversations at dinner table, because sometimes I'd be upset, and like during dinner, we would have conversations about like whether it was ping pong, whatever it is, I'll be upset about. We used to play Scrabble a lot. So there was a lot of different things that we did, a lot of competitive games that we played that taught me a lot about life. And so I wanted to go back to like what you talked about with your father and your relationship with your dad, but also his relationship with your mom. Like, did that physical abuse ever trigger something in you? Because I've had conversations with people where they've said like, sometimes when a father or somebody else in the child's relationship is physical with like another parent, it can lead to the child thinking that behavior is okay. So do you feel like you ever had that notion growing up in relationships, like this is normal, or like was it the complete opposite?
I thought it was normal because it was happening in my home, but I never thought it was okay.
Okay.
So I'll tell you some more about research.
Yeah.
If you grew up in a home where you witnessed domestic violence as a male, you're 52 times more likely than a person who did not grow up in a home where there was domestic violence to become a perpetrator of domestic violence.
And that's kind of what I was,
52 times more likely.
That's crazy.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I don't know why I did not become in that category, but I'm very proud. Like I've written books, I've traveled the world, I've gotten degrees, and people sometimes will ask me, like, what am I most proud of? And I can tell you unequivocally, the thing I'm most proud of is I've never put my hands on a woman in anger, ever, my whole life. And I witnessed things in my childhood that made me in the category of 52 times more likely. So I think, and it's no surprise that I became a psychotherapist, but I think the turmoil in my home, including what was going on between my parents, it made me hungry to try to figure out, why do people behave the way they behave? And the beauty of that is it made me want to choose the kind of adult I wanted to be. You know, like I will never forget, man. So my best friend growing up, his name is Kyle. He lived across the street from me and like over. And he lives on a corner. And every day after school, like we played sports together. After he was in a grade younger than me. So after school, I'd go over his house. We'd play video games. Like I'm talking every day. And one day, this is like probably one of the biggest turning points of my life. One day I walked into Kyle's house and we were so close. You don't even knock at that point. You just walk in. And I would walk into his house and his mom would always be the first person I'd see. She'd either be in the kitchen or in the living room. And she'd say, oh, Kyle's upstairs. And I'd, give her a hug and, run upstairs. This particular day, she's in the living room crying. So I walk in and I see her in tears. And I said, are you okay? And she said, yeah, Kyle's upstairs. So I go upstairs and I'm shaken by what I just seen. Mm-hmm. And Kyle is not one bit. I said, Kyle, man, your mom's downstairs crying. He said, yeah, my mom and dad had a fight this morning. And I was like, man, because those words mean something to me. And it was the first time in my life I realized those words didn't mean the same thing to him. So he tells me, my mom and dad had an argument this morning. And my mom's, she's just struggling. She's had a rough day. So what video game you want to play? And I was like, video game? Like, bro, this is... Because in my house, when that happens, everybody's night is ruined. Like,
right.
It's just not a good night. And my brain is warped by this experience, like Kyle saying this. So all right, man, let's play Tecmo Bowl or whatever. And we start playing video games, and then his dad comes home, and my anxiety goes through the roof because There is nothing worse than when my dad came home in a bad mood. Like, absolutely nothing worse. Dad comes home and, I hear some murmuring. I can't really understand what the parents are talking about, downstairs and whatever it was, but they were obviously talking, and we start playing, and eventually they called us and they said, "You guys want something to eat?" And I go downstairs and they were sitting on the couch. His mother and father were sitting on the couch in each other's arms. And I remember thinking, like, I don't think I've ever seen my parents make up after a fight. And that was where I realized, like, oh, so you can disagree and reconnect. What happened in my house often is there was arguing, screaming, breaking things, pieces of furniture. Like, it would get violent, bad. And then the next day, it would just, like, go on as normal. I never really saw, like,
a resolution.
Yeah, I never saw it. So when I saw it, it made me say, like, I want to be like that. And to this day, I could get them out. Kyle's parents, I mean, they're special to me because they were part of what modeled to me, I can choose the kind of adult I'm going to be. I don't just have to follow the patterns given to me. Because they let me observe their lives in the way that they did, I saw what love looked like in a much more healthy way than what I was seeing in my home. And love, sometimes you do disagree. Sometimes you don't always see things eye to eye. But I saw them reconnect whenever that were to happen, which wasn't frequent. But I never forgot that first time. I never forgot that time I saw that. It blew me away.
I want to pause real quick and talk to the brothers that may be going through it right now, because I know there are some of you that are going through it right now that are listening to this episode. And I want to make sure that you guys feel seen, heard, understood, and supported. So if you're going through depression, if you're going through suicide ideations, if you're going through anxiety, a difficult breakup, divorce, baby mama drama, whatever it is that you're thinking about on a day-to-day basis that's making you feel like less of a man, I want you to know that it is okay to be going through those things. But what's not okay is for you to stay in the same position that you're in right now, knowing that there's things that you could be doing to better yourself. And so one of those things that we've created personally for Black men on this platform is called Safe Haven. So Safe Haven is a holistic healing platform that we've created specifically for Black men just like you. Whatever it is that you're going through, you're not alone, because we have hundreds of men inside of Safe Haven that are going through the same exact thing as you. We have resources that are available to help you heal. One of the most important resources is connecting you with a mental health professional that can help you and will help you through whatever it is that you're going through. And we do that within the first 10 to 15 minutes of you getting onto the platform. We're the only platform that does this specifically for Black men. We're the only platform that specifically vets our professionals before they're even allowed on our platform, so they know how to help Black men to heal. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, if you're ready to make a change in your life, then join Safe Haven. All you got to do is go to expressyourselfblackman.com/links, and there will be a link for you to join Safe Haven. If you are a woman and you know a Black man and you're trying to get them to join Safe Haven, you can go to expressyourselfblackman.com/links and join on their behalf, or gift them a Safe Haven membership. If you have any questions, if anything's not clear, send an email to staff@expressyourselfblackman.com. And with that being said, let's get back to the rest of the episode. Love y'all. I want to take it back to Black culture for a little bit, because I feel like there's so much, for lack of better words, dysfunction that we sometimes normalize, whether it be through relationships, family, conflict, whatever. So I want to ask you, outside of like the explaining why and not just trying to make sure children are obedient, but that they actually understand what's going on and why they need to do certain things, what are some other things that you feel like are in Black culture right now that we probably shouldn't perpetuate or pass down and continue to keep alive? It could be about parenting, it could be about relationships, it could be about whatever. What are some things that truly like maybe keep you up at night, or things that you think about like, man, if we were to just shift this would make our culture so much more stronger?
Talking about mental health.
Okay.
If we could just talk about mental health and talk openly about the effectiveness of psychotherapy, I think that would do a lot for our culture and our society. To be very honest, I don't know that Black culture is as open to conversation about mental health as other cultures are. And by the way, I understand that, like I happen to think that the journey towards mental health is the last hurdle of the civil rights movement.
Explain that.
And the reason why I think that, and the reason why I think we don't have a habit of talking about mental health goes all the way back to slavery. Because like, if I'm being tortured and I've had my rights taken away, I'm being treated like a piece of property, like I'm literally living as a slave, I'm getting whipped frequently, whatever it is. And I turn to the person next to me and I say, hey man, I think I'm a little depressed. He's gonna say, man, me too. Like, look,
right.
Like, look at it. Like, we weren't allowed to talk about, like, think about, I could define a mental health disruption in a very simple way, which is waking up with the expectation of having a good experience and then not having a good experience. So if I wake up with the expectation that this is going to be a very good day, and then I don't have a good day too consistently, that's a very simple, direct way we could define a mental health disruption. Do you think people who look like you and I in 1820 woke up with the expectation that they were going to have a good day? Like they wake up with the expectation that I'm going to be violated. They wake up with the expectation that I'm going to be oppressed. They wake up with the expectation that I'm going to be treated unfairly. We had to fight just to get to a point where we have the expectation of having a good day. And now that we're at that place that we can actually wake up with the expectation of having a good day, we don't have the habit of like talking to one another about what we're doing for our mental health. And it doesn't always mean therapy. Sometimes it's like, I have a lot of very famous clients that I talk to and athletes. And a retired professional athlete was talking to me about their mental health recently. And this person was saying, like, my whole life, I did this sport and I did it this well. And through the conversation, they were like, maybe I should go back to doing that. I was like, yeah, because you didn't start playing the sport because it was going to bring you millions of dollars or millions of fans. You started playing the sport because it brought you joy. Like you were a 7-year-old kid. You'd go to the park and see other kids playing and you wanted to play the sport to have joy. And even conversations like that, like you should continue doing the things that give you joy. Just because you retired from the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball, keep doing the things that bring you joy. But we don't often talk about mental health in the Black household. Mm-hmm. And if there was one thing I would love to change about our society, it's like we need to have open conversations about, I'm struggling with anxiety. I'm struggling with depression. And in some cases, you should probably go see a psychiatrist and get on medication. Those are rare in my opinion. Mm-hmm. In other cases, you should probably go see a psychotherapist and talk to somebody. And in other cases, like maybe you just need to remember who you are. Because I could ruin someone's someone's mental health. I really could easily by just finding out the things that they love and then removing it from their lives. It's a very simple way to cause someone to be dysregulated. So if we talk to our kids more and we're like, hey, you seem to love art. For the rest of your life, make sure you draw. Or you seem to love music. For the rest of your life, make sure you create music. Or you seem to love writing. For the rest of your life, make sure you write. That would protect people's mental health. And I don't think we talk about it enough in our society, in our culture. And like people attack my platform. Like sometimes I read the comments and like, man, that's some white boy shit. Like, no, this is mental health stuff. It don't even, like, we shouldn't think like that. Yeah. It's crazy to me. Like, I find it crazy, but that's the one thing I wish if we did more of that, it would do more for our culture than anything else. And I think Black people, I'm going to get killed for saying this too, but to live in America as a Black man is to have a very frequent experience with trauma. And people need to be able to process trauma. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll never forget, ever watching Ahmaud Arbery get shot. I remember hearing about the story, and I remember being told that there's a video of this shooting, and I did everything I could not to see it. Like, I don't want to see this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do not want to see that young man's life get taken. And then one day, I was sitting in my house, and I was just on the computer, and they had the trial. This was a year or two after the shooting, whenever the trial was. Mm-hmm. And I was watching the trial, and they showed the video of the murder. And I'll never forget, man, like watching this kid's fighting for his life. You hear the gunshot go off, and you see like a pink hue fly off of his body, which you know is blood splatter. And he turned to run away. He took about 2 steps and collapsed. And I watched that. And I realized, and this is the trauma part, that unless you're not black, you don't see it this way. Because to non-black people, that just looked like a news story. But when I saw that, I was like, wow, Ahmaud Arbery is guilty of something that I've done 10,000 times, which is jogging through a white neighborhood. Specifically, jogging through a white neighborhood in the South. I've done that 10,000 times. And you see that and you're just like, that could be me.
Yep.
That could be someone I know and love. And that's an experience that we have to process. Like we have to talk about, like, what is it like to experience some of the traumas that living in America these days presents to us?
Yep.
And I don't think we do talk about it often enough. Mm-hmm. So what happens is we bottle it in, we hold it in, it creates turmoil in our head, and we respond whenever. This is true for everybody. When you hold something in for long enough, when you do eventually respond, it's usually an over response to whatever the thing was at the time. But if we could like talk about it and talk about it consistently and have someone safe to talk to, whether that's a parent, therapist, teacher in school, doesn't matter. In our society, that would be great. But like when I look online at the way some of these hip hop people are treated when they do talk about going to therapy, it breaks my heart because they're not supported and upheld for doing this. Big Sean, shout out to Big Sean. I've hung out with him a couple of times. He talked about how he took a break from rap for a year just to do therapy. And for the most part, lots of people are like, man, good for you. That's important. But not everybody. Like people made fun of him for this. Charlemagne the God, who I personally think is the single most important voice in the black mental health space because he talks so openly about his own journey and his experiences in therapy. But people think he talks about that too much. But we have to normalize healing, and I don't think we do that in our culture enough.
All right, I'm interrupting this podcast episode to let you guys know to leave a review on the podcast. Please, 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 if you are listening to this episode and you're finding value in this episode, you're enjoying the conversation, or you've enjoyed a previous episode or conversation, and it's safe to operate your phone right now, please leave us a review. Your review is a free and easy way to support us, and it helps us reach more people like you. We're on a mission to build a stronger, more connected black community, starting with black men. And you can help us on that mission by taking a minute out of your day to leave a review. Your review helps us generate more listeners, which in turn generates more revenue, allowing us to expand the platform even further. So please take a few seconds out of your day. I know you're busy. I understand. I know you're doing a lot, but it will help us greatly if you would just take a few seconds out of your day to leave a review right now. Did you leave a review yet? All right, let's get back to the episode. For me personally, anytime those things happen, like any shootings or anything like that, I am 1,000% with you. I try my hardest not to watch it because I know my tolerance level. I don't have a tolerance. I just can't. I can't watch that and just continue to go through the rest of my day like I didn't watch it. So I always try to distance myself from that. Whenever there's any type of like shooting or anything going on, I take time off of social media I just take my time to kind of like try and process on my own, because I feel like it's not normal for us to see Black people being killed.
Nope.
Like Black death on social media, like that to me is not normal at all. So I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. But with that being said, I'm glad you talked about us normalizing the conversation about mental health, because I wanted to talk about your mental health, right? Like one of the things I wanted to get into was what your experience was like during COVID. Like how was that time for you?
Oh, man. COVID was tough for me.
And why?
There were lots of reasons, actually. So COVID, I was a, big time global speaker.
Okay.
And I had a thriving therapy practice. And, I was living the life I'd worked really hard to live. And then COVID happens. And I'll never forget, March 11th, 2020, I was sitting in my office at home, and I'm about to go speak at this huge conference in Washington, D.C. They sent an email early in the day saying that this thing called COVID-19, we don't think it's going to be too big of an issue. Only a small percentage of the conference is canceled, so we're still having the conference. And I was like, cool, this is great. And March 11th, 2020, I'm sitting at my desk, and I was watching television, and that was when the Oklahoma City Thunder were playing the Utah Jazz. And two guys in a suit ran onto the court. And the announcers were like, we don't know what's going on. We're going to take a commercial break and come back. When they come back, they announced that Rudy Gobert had tested positive for COVID, and they were canceling the game. And over the next 24 hours, the world shut down. And then all of those events that I had scheduled, all of those events that I was going to see, and all those clients I was going to see, canceled. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden I went from making, a decent living to literally zero, nothing. And I got real depressed. I probably didn't even get off my couch for a week. I just what are you going to do with yourself? Mm-hmm. And I had to fight to get my mental health back. And I did two things that helped me.
Okay.
The first thing I did, the number one thing every human being needs, by the way, is hope. You have to have hope. And hope in everything you do. Like when you started this podcast, it's like, oh, I hope I reach X number of people, or I hope it makes such a difference. I hope I get to interview people like so-and-so and so-and-so. But hope is really important. So a few years before COVID, I had founded a training organization for psychotherapists and started putting my trainings online. And there were people in my field that were very upset by this. Like, Elliot, you shouldn't be putting therapy training online. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then after everything in my life got shut down due to COVID, I was sitting there for, a week or so, super depressed. And then one day, someone bought something from my website. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. It was a $97 thing, but somebody bought it. That same day, a couple hours later, somebody bought it, somebody bought a second thing, and then somebody bought a third thing. And I remember waking up the next morning thinking 3 orders of $97 is not going to solve my problem. And then a light bulb went off and I was like, oh crap, the whole world just went online. And I have a library of training material online. What if I could just pivot and start doing trainings online? And my company became a 7-figure revenue company a year, literally just like that. So that was the first thing I did, was I just leaned into something that would give me hope, which was I just hope that I could do this thing. The second thing I did, because even though things are going great, so now I leaned into the training and my company's growing exponentially and I'm hiring employees, but I still wasn't going anywhere, because the world was shut down. And I remember sitting in my house one day, I just got to get outside and do something. And I thought back to my childhood, and I always wanted to try archery, but we didn't have any money. Mm-hmm. And I was a kid, I'd go see Rambo, I want a bow and arrow. Mm-hmm. We didn't have no money, so it never happened. So now I'm I need to get out and do something. And I went to an outdoor store. I bought a bow, some arrows, and a target. And I bought a bow, a Rambo bow, and set up the target in my backyard. And that became the hobby that got me through COVID. I would go outside and shoot my bow and arrow. And those two things really, really helped me get through this crazy time that the world was dealing with.
First of all, I like the archery because I feel like that's so different.
I've never done it before. This outdoor store, I'd only been there once before, and I was just with somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know what made me do it to this day.
No, that's dope because I think what the moral of the story that I hear there is you don't have to be afraid of the things that you haven't tried before. Like if
Absolutely
it's something, if it's something that has interest you, just try it. And I feel like oftentimes, especially in our culture, we shy away from things that we don't have expertise in because we don't want to look like we don't know what we're doing.
And you also, you don't see a lot of brothers shooting bow and arrow. So we shy away from things. But you've got to remember who you were as a kid. Like who you were as a child will give you more insight about what makes you happy and brings you joy than anything else. And I don't know why, but I've always been fascinated with archery. When you watch things like Robin Hood, you'd be like, oh, that's dope. Like he split an arrow. Like you watch Rambo, like, oh, that's dope. There's something about it, a bow and arrow that really fascinated with me. So here I am now when COVID happened, I was in my early 40s. And I'm trying to think, like, what am I going to do with myself? Like I can't get on a plane, which I was doing a lot before COVID. I can't go to movie theaters. Like everything was shut down for a long period of time. So I was like, man, this would be a decent time to see about archery. I have no idea what made me have that thought.
No, I feel you. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you too about that time, was there anybody, like I know you mentioned a couple, like Hope and an archery was like something that helped you get through. Was there any people that helped you get through?
All people,
okay.
I think. I think surrounding myself with supportive people, loving people, because I'm the kind of person, like, I'm going to talk about what I went through. I'm going to talk about what I'm going through. I'm going to talk about how I'm feeling, good or bad. And I had a lot of really supportive people around me that made a massive difference. My partner at the time, I have an aunt. Here's an example of what I mean by really supportive people. Also, what happened in the spring of 2020 was George Floyd's murder. And I have two brothers. My mother just had three boys. And George Floyd's murder really shook the country and the culture. And I remember calling my mom, and she was like, I'm just worried about my three sons. And I heard a worry in her voice, unlike anything that I can remember hearing. And I was like, damn, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't fly there. Like, you can't fly in spring of 2020. Like, there's no planes. And I called my aunt. I'm very close to one of my aunts, my mother's sister, who also lives in Texas where I live. And I told her, like, I just spoke to Mom, and I'm so, like, I don't know what to do. And she said, do you want to go to Chicago, where my mother lived? And I was like, but we can't fly. And she's like, well, if you drive, I'll go with you. And I was like, bet. The next day, I went and picked up my aunt. We drove 997 miles to go to Chicago to see my mother. And it was stuff like that like having really good, loving people around you means a lot. And my aunt's a pain in the ass. Like, she's the kind of person, man, she gonna nag you. And if you gain a little weight, she'd be like, you look unhealthy. If you lose a little weight, you look unhealthy. My aunt, she's gonna find something to get at you about. But like, when I need her, she's there. And when I was really shook because my mom is in Chicago worried about her three sons, we can drive 1,000 miles to go see my mother. So it's another thing I don't think people spend enough time thinking about is like, who are the people around you? Your life will be drastically impacted by the people you choose to allow in your circle.
I wanted to ask you about that too, because you said you had some good supportive people, but I feel like a lot of times Black men don't feel like we have supportive people around us. We feel like we have people that we have to support. So how do we create a network of people that we can actually depend on when it's time for us to actually need that support? What do you feel like are some things that we could do?
Man, you got to be an asshole sometimes.
What do you mean by that?
Because when somebody lets you know that they're not helping you get where you want to go, you got to stop messing with that. Like, in our culture, we view, like, this interview gonna get me killed. I'm just gonna.
No, you're good, bro. You're good.
I'm just gonna tell you. No, you just watch the comments.
Okay.
But in our culture, we view elevating as selling out.
Okay.
And what I mean by that, like, if I grow up and I'm surrounded by just the neighborhood people I grew up with, there is absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to stay connected to your community. But if I want to elevate, then you've got to elevate with me. And if you don't, I've got to say, like, look, man, I'm going to a place that you don't seem to want to go to.
Right.
So I got to drop you off here.
Yep.
Like, I don't have a choice. Like, I love you and thank you for being my childhood friend, but I'm going to this other place.
Right.
I'm inviting you. Like, you are welcome to come with me. But if you choose not to come with me, I've got to leave you right here.
Absolutely.
And there are two really great examples about this. One in a way that it did not go well, and another one that it did. And I'll start with the one that didn't go well, which was Michael Vick.
Okay.
Michael Vick was so loyal to his childhood friends, he brought them on his journey of fame and wealth with him, even though they were not adding anything to his life. He just brought them along the journey due to loyalty. He has said this himself in interviews. Like, I'm just loyal to them. So when he got a $100 million contract, he was like, I want to support them. And they ended up dragging him down because they were the ones doing all of the craziness with the dog fighting and all that kind of stuff. Instead of supporting him and holding him up, they kept him involved in the street life, even though he was living this other life. He ended up having to do 2 years in prison for that. He lost his career. He lost multiple endorsements and all of the things. But then what happened? When he got out of prison, he left those things behind. You cannot come with me if you're not coming with me. And he got it all back. In part because he separated himself from the behaviors of people that were not elevating with him. Now, an example that goes really well is LeBron James.
I knew you were going to say LeBron.
LeBron James said to his homies, I want to build an empire. And he invested in them. And he invited them. If you guys are willing to, we're going to go off and do this. They built $1 billion enterprise. But it's all people he grew up with. So I'm not saying you can't hang around with the people you grew up with. But once you choose, I'm going to go live a different life, they've got to either come with you or you have to drop them off and leave you behind.
And how do we know how to make that differentiation? Because I feel like sometimes we want to give people multiple chances because we're like, yo, I know this person. So how do we know when it's time for us to be like, all right, you know what? This ain't the relationship for me as I elevate to this new season? I think you know, if I said be an asshole, I think you know, but it's like you fear judgment. You fear retribution. You don't want to have the hard conversation, but you know, you know when people support you. Like one of my best friends from college is a guy named Matthew. Like, I've had some health struggles in the past couple of years. And like, if I were to hang out with Matthew, another black guy, he's an attorney now. If I were to hang out with Matthew and I say, hey man, let's go hang out, Matthew would be like, yeah man, let's go do that. And if I go, we're at a restaurant and I order a bowl of ice cream, Matthew would be like, man, you sure that's okay? Because Matthew's aware of my health and Matthew would support me. And sometimes support means you shouldn't do that. And Matthew would do that. Now, he ain't gonna stop me if but Matthew would honestly say to me, hey man, are you sure that that's a good choice for you to make right now? And the other thing about Matthew, if he was like wanting ice cream, he would make a different choice to support me. Matthew would be like, man, I want some ice cream, bro, but I ain't gonna do that. So I'm gonna eat this other thing. So you know that that's true. Now, let's say Matthew wasn't that kind of guy. Let's say I tell Matthew like, hey man, my doctor said my blood sugar, da-da-da. And Matthew says, hey man, screw that doctor, man. Let's go get some ice cream like we used to. You don't know what you're talking
Then I know. Like I can't kick it with Matthew. Yeah. It might literally kill me. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I might literally die.
Yeah.
You're walking around here with 1 foot. All the things that happen when you don't address your blood sugar health issues.
Right.
I know Matthew would 100% support me. Matthew is that friend. I can call Matthew and be like, hey man, we got to bury a body tonight. And he'd be like, all right, man, I'll bring the shovel. He's also the friend that if I called him and said, hey, my doctor told me if I don't change my lifestyle, I'm going to have some problems. Matthew would be like, okay, what are we going to do about it? You know what I mean? Like so I don't think the issue is how do we know? I think the issue is how to develop the like, ability to make the decision that you know that you need to know, that you need to make. I think that's really the biggest issue.
Yeah. So then my question is now, because I think now what we're talking about is not necessarily whether we know, but more so how do we navigate the fear of what will happen after we make the decision?
Yeah. The only thing I can say is like, I don't make fear-based decisions.
Okay.
And I have people say to me, once I started having certain levels of success, or even before that, when I went to college, people, oh, that's college kid. Okay. But now, college kid would get phone calls about the death or imprisonment of street kid. You know what I'm saying? So like when I was in college, like people would make fun of me and be like, oh, that's Joe College. He think he better than everybody else. Like, no, I just like, I went to college because there were two reasons I went to college. I wanted to play baseball. And once you're done with high school, the only place to play is in college or not. And the other reason was I wanted to learn about psychology. So I went to college, majored in psychology, and I played baseball. But people would be like, you think you're better than everybody else. Well, now I have a lot of business success in books, and people are, oh, you think you're better than everybody else. No. But I recognize that that's you judging me. And if I make decisions based upon fear of that judgment, I won't make the decisions that get me closer to where I'm trying to go. And it's very, very important that you make decisions that move you towards your aim and that you don't fear somebody else's judgment.
Do you feel like some of that fear comes from childhood trauma?
Maybe. I feel like I think a lot of human beings want to be accepted.
Okay.
And want to be liked. And we experience it as challenging when we feel like our own people don't like us or accept us.
Yeah.
But I don't have that. That is.
Have you always been that way, or is it just something that you developed as you've gotten older?
I think I've always been that way. Like when your own dad don't like you, I think you have two ways you need to go. One way is like you become a people pleaser because you're trying to win. But I went the other way, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna figure out how to live this life without you liking me or anybody else. So that part ain't important to me. It's never really been important to me.
Yeah. You developed somewhat of a resilience to whether it doesn't matter whether or not people liked you.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because I knew my father didn't like me. I knew he loved me. I still, to this day, I think my father loves me. I don't think he knows how to do it in a healthy way, but I knew he didn't like me. He didn't like certain parts of my personality, certain characteristics about me. Yeah. I've always been quiet. Strangely enough, I've become a speaker and a writer and all that, but I've always been quiet. And I remember one day walking into church with my father and my two brothers, and I've always been an introverted person. So we're walking into the church, and I've got my head down, and I'm just walking. And this guy walks past my dad and two brothers and says, "Good morning." And I didn't know that dude, and just kept my head down, kept walking. My two brothers responded to the guy, but to me, I was just in my little bubble in my own head. And when we got into church, my father took me into a back room and we had an issue. And I remember thinking, like, I was just being myself. Like, I didn't do anything rude to that guy. I was literally just being myself. And I grew up thinking, like, if being myself is going to upset you, then I've now got a choice. Am I going to change who I am? Or are you going to have to learn how to deal with me being myself? And for whatever reason, authenticity is probably the most important trait for me. So I'm not going to sacrifice being myself for anybody.
So what about, because I hear what you're saying, but a lot of black men don't think that way. I've had a lot of conversations with black men that I always say this. There's a lot of black men that confuse people pleasing with providing, or providing with people pleasing, however you want to look at it.
Right.
Where because they feel like they need to be a provider, they think they need to say yes to everything, they need to do everything for everybody, and then oftentimes that leads to them feeling empty and not really having the capacity to take care of themselves. And that's really what ends up being people pleasing. It's not really providing. So I want to ask you, for the black man right now that may find himself in that position where he's oftentimes people pleasing and confusing that with providing, how does he navigate getting more into a healthy space where he's not people pleasing so much? How does he navigate that aspect of it?
The thing I would say, and by the way, I agree with you. I have conversations with people about that too. And a lot of people have jobs that they hate so that they could provide the living for their, partners and children and whatnot. But, and I respect, not everybody is fortunate enough to have landed in their dream job or their dream career or whatever. Mm-hmm. So what I say to people like that, look, I understand you have to do this particular job to make a living so you can provide a life and meet your obligations. Mm-hmm. But I always tell people, remember I said earlier, hope is the single most important thing in the mental health journey. I tell people, number one, figure out the thing that would give you joy to be doing as a career. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is, once you figure that thing out, spend at least some time each day making yourself available to that job.
Okay.
So, for example, let's say that job is I always wanted to be a psychotherapist, mm-hmm. but I work at the post office. Cool. Take one class per semester. Just keep moving towards that dream job. Because even though you're doing a job you don't want to do, just having hope that it will one day change will completely change your experience, your daily lived experience. Mm-hmm. Hope changes your daily lived experience more than anything else. So literally, if I have a job that I hate, but on my off hours, I'm preparing myself for a job that I love, just I hope one day I get this job, mm-hmm. changes the entire dynamic. And most people live without hope. They just go do that same job every day and they feel like this is my lot in life and they feel stuck. But what if what I really want to do is I want to host a podcast. Well, in your off hours, research what equipment you're going to need, research how to market a podcast and set up the Instagram and YouTube page. You can do that stuff and then just pivot, right? Then just switch. But sometimes you got to make really hard choices.
Right.
Because your friends might call you and be like, hey man, we're going out drinking tonight. No, I'm working on my dream. I spend an hour each day after work learning how to do a podcast or learning how to be a clinical psychotherapist or learning how to be an artist. So now y'all gonna have to, have that drink without me because I'm working on my dream. And most people just aren't willing to sacrifice.
Talk about that.
Well, so when I got out of graduate school, this is in 2006. Very soon after that, I set up my own therapy practice. And starting a therapy practice is a very difficult thing. Getting enough clients to make a living, it's a very, very hard thing. But I was able to do it pretty quickly. And one of the ways I did that is I obsessed about how do you market a therapy practice and what does your website need to look like all that kind of stuff. And very soon I had a very large, successful, well-known therapy practice. And people would call me and they'd be like, hey man, what did you do? How did you do that as quickly as you did it? And I would always tell them, I'm happy to tell you. I'll tell you every single thing that I did to make my therapy practice successful as quickly as I was able to do it. Come by my office on Friday night at 10 o'clock. I'll tell you whatever you need to know. And then I'll be, I can't, man. I'm going out with it. Okay, then I'm not going to tell you.
No, you're not serious.
Yeah.
You playing.
Because I was going to be in my office at 10 o'clock. And I wasn't just saying that. I saw about 10 clients a day, 6 days a week. My last client left my office at 9 p.m. and I had about an hour of paperwork to do each day. So the honest free time I have is at 10 o'clock. So if you want me to tell you what I did to succeed, come by my office at 10 o'clock and I'll sit there and I'll tell you everything you want to know. In roughly 10 years of giving that answer, 2 people came by my office at 10 o'clock on Friday night. Both of them have very large therapy practices to this day. But most human beings, they're like, oh no, I can't on Friday. I told my wife that we'd go have dinner. And I get that. Okay, then you're not willing to sacrifice that. But that's what success takes. Success takes sacrifice. You have to be willing to do that.
So you believe most people want success, but they don't want the other S, which is the sacrifice that comes with it.
I think most people want success. In fact, I think everybody wants success, but nobody wants the journey. They don't want the journey. You don't want the pain. Like everybody looks at, some 6-pack abs, but you don't want the sit-ups. Most people, you just don't want that. You don't want to eat 120 grams of protein with this whey protein powder. Like you don't want that. But you just want the physique that looks like that.
Yeah.
But you got to have both. Like you have to, you got to have both for sure.
Yeah. People want the outcome, not the process.
100%. They want the outcome, not the process.
Oh my God.
But you got to fall in love with the process. The process is where it's at.
Yeah. Why? So let me ask you this, because you talked about hope, and I think hope is so important to this conversation. And it's the first time I've heard, because when you talk about hope, what I'm hearing a lot is reframing. And you let me know if I'm wrong. Because when I was in college, I was going through depression, suicide ideations. One of the big things that helped me a lot was reframing. What I'm realizing now is what reframing did for me was it gave me the hope that I could have a good day, that life wasn't crazy, that I can go and do what I need to do. Because when I was going through depression and suicidal ideation, my thought process was, I hate life. Life sucks. Everything about my life is actually horrible. That's what I was telling myself basically every day. And that was my thought process. And so the reframing that I was doing was really telling myself, one, I would end my days or I would start my days with like 3 things I was grateful for. So it forced me to like actually see something good.
Right.
Which then helped me to really tap into the idea that, okay, life isn't as bad as it is. And so I'm saying all this to say, do you feel like part of the healing process is getting to a point where you have enough hope to actually accomplish whatever it is that you put your mind to? And do you feel like that's what therapists should be doing in practice? Is that what you guys are doing in practice? Like, I know it's a loaded question, so take your parts out of it, but I'm just trying to figure out, like, is reframing hope? And then is that also what you guys are doing in practice with clients?
I don't resonate with the word reframing.
Okay. Why not? Yeah.
Because I think what we're doing is mobilizing hope.
Okay.
So one of the things we have in common, which I did not know, is college was the worst time of my life. I was very suicidal. And I'll tell you a quick story about my own suicidality, but when I was 19, I decided I was going to kill myself. I knew exactly how I was going to do it. Like I'm checking out. And I remember going back to my dorm room, and I laid in bed knowing that I got about a week to live. Like I was going to take my life on this whatever the upcoming weekend was. And I went to go take a nap. And I remember waking up from that nap thinking about my death. And I'll never forget this. It was one of those moments where, like, I don't know how faithful you are, or like what your religion.
No, yeah, I believe it. Yep. Yeah, we right. Yeah.
I believe God did this to me. I think God put this in my mind in this moment. And I was laying in bed, getting up from that nap, and I started thinking of my funeral. And I started thinking about what the eulogy would be. And I started thinking about my friends speaking at my funeral. Now, at that time, I would have told you the root of my depression and anxiety was my father's anger, because I couldn't escape it. Like I could not escape it. A little side note, I thought college would be the escape to it. But when I was in college, I got a beeper. You guys don't remember what a beeper is, like go Google it. I got a beeper, and my father would page me. And if I didn't, and I'd have to call him back just for him to berate me. And if I didn't call him back, he would drive 2.5 hours to the college I was going to. Now imagine how embarrassing that is. You're sitting on a college campus, hanging out with your homies, you guys are playing video games, and your dad knocks on the door and then drags you by your face into your own dorm room and just dog cusses you out. Like, it was horrible. So when the thing I thought would save me, which was physically removing myself from his presence and going to college didn't work. I was ready to go. Like I did not have any hope. So here I am laying in my dorm room thinking about my funeral and all my friends walking up to the podium and saying whatever they're going to say about me. And in my head, they would all say, I didn't know Elliot was this screwed up. Like I didn't know he was in this much pain. And bro, like I can't tell you why, but I found that unacceptable.
What do you mean by unacceptable?
I didn't want to be blamed for my own death. I wanted my friends to go up to the podium and say, I didn't know his dad was such an asshole. So for them to go up to the podium and say, I didn't know Elliot was so broken, I wanted to be, but I'm not broken. He broke me. And I cannot tell you why I found that so unacceptable, but it was in that moment I decided I need to tell my story. And in order to tell my story, I have to outlive the experience I'm having now. So in that moment, I had hope that I could outlive the hard experience. Now, I didn't know one day I was going to be writing books or doing podcast interviews like this and sharing these things, but I didn't even want to live necessarily. I just didn't want to die for a lie. I wanted the truth to be I wanted people to know what was really going on. But in order for me to tell that truth, had to be the choice to live. So I chose to live. And in that choice, and I said earlier, like when you try to elevate your life, you got to drop some people off. Like that's just real.
Yeah.
And you might have to develop a little bit of assholeness to be able to do that. Well, one of the people I dropped off was my father. I haven't talked to my father in 20 years. Because I had chose to live. So shortly after that choice, my dad comes to visit, right? He comes to visit. My two brothers are there, and he comes to visit. We go see a movie. The movie we went to go see was called Swordfish.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a
I have
terrible...
no idea what that movie is.
Terrible movie.
Okay.
It starred John Travolta and Halle Berry.
John Travolta. Oh, Halle Berry.
Halle Berry.
Can't be that bad.
It's not. She did some freaky things in that movie.
Okay.
If you've never seen it.
Okay.
But it's a trash movie. It's not very good.
Okay.
So me and my two brothers and my dad are in this movie watching this horrible movie. Which, by the way, Halle Berry does some freaky things in this movie. It's very uncomfortable to see her sitting next to her dad.
Yeah, I was about to say, why are you watching this with your pops?
I have no idea.
Yeah, okay.
I can't even tell you.
Okay.
But we leave the theater. Now, I had just made this commitment to myself a few weeks prior. Okay. Nobody knows it. It's just going on in my head.
Yeah.
We leave the theater, and my dad says, what'd you think of the movie? To me and my brothers. My older brother responds to my dad and says, that's 2 hours of my life I'll never get back. Which was a comment on the quality of the movie.
Okay.
For whatever reason, my father takes that personally and says, so you can't just enjoy that I was here visiting. And now all of a sudden we're having a fight. By the time, and I drove that night, by the time we're getting to my car, it's a full on fight. My brother,
physical?
A physical fight. My older brother and dad are fighting. And I was like, this is that bullshit I don't want in my life anymore.
Right.
I tried everything I could to break up the fight. Eventually, they break up. The fight breaks up. I mean, at this point, it's not even doing it. I've seen these kind of fights and arguments.
It's kind of normal.
It's normal.
Yeah.
These people have fought my entire life. My older brother and my dad have had more physical altercations than any two people I know of. So this is not a foreign thing to me. But what was different is I had just decided I need to live. And I knew this is the kind of thing that contributes
to you not wanting to be here.
Right. So I break up the fight. Eventually they calm down. My older brother and my younger brother get in the back seat of my car. And my dad gets in the front seat and he slams the door. Wham! And I looked at him and I knew, like, the decision to live your life is a courageous decision. I don't care how old you are. For me, all of this happened when I was 19. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what you live it. Like the decision to I'm going to own my life. I'm going to not be afraid. I'm going to not be intimidated. I'm going to own my life. That's a courageous decision. And this was my moment. My dad got in my car and he slammed the door. And I remember thinking, if I'm going to live, I need respect.
Mm-hmm.
So I turned to my dad and I said, you have to get out of my car and get back into my car as if you respect me.
Mm-hmm.
That was the exact sentence I said. I'm not moving this car until you get out and close that door as if you respect me. I had never said anything like that to that man, ever.
Mm.
So he looked at me like I had 5 heads. And he got out of my car and he started walking. My little brother sees him walking, so my little brother goes, and I'm like, I'm not moving this car until he respects me. His hotel was about 3 miles away. And he walked from where we were watching the movie theater on 3 miles of highway. Like, he had to walk on the highway.
What?
He walked 3 miles, like, adjacent to a highway with my younger brother rather than respect me. He would rather have walked 3 miles than respect his son. And I remember knowing that, like, that's not good. And it hit me really hard. Like, that's a hurtful experience. All he had to do was close my door like a reasonable person. And you would rather... And I called him. I called him that night. And I'll never forget this night. I have an interesting relationship with LeBron James. I don't know him personally, but like the icon that is LeBron James. I have an interesting relationship with him. And the reason is, this was the first night that LeBron James was on ESPN. There was a high school, like ESPN used to never show high school sports or whatever.
Yeah.
LeBron James is coming up, and he is he's the guy. And ESPN decides to cover one of his games, and this night was that night. So now I look at LeBron, and he's got a son who is in professional sports, and he's got gray in his beard. But that always signifies to me that's how long it's been since I've talked to my dad. Because that night I called him after my father got back to the hotel. I drove back to my house. And I called him and I said, look, man, I need to live a different life. I need you to follow 4 rules. You can't yell at me. You can't call me names. You can't hit me, and you can't curse at me. If you can do those 4 things, I'll deal with everything else. But these are my 4 rules. So I explained it to him and why it was so important. And his exact response to me was, fuck you. And he hung up the phone. So I was like, okay, you just violated one of the 4 things that I now told you. If you're going to be in my life, these 4 things matter to me now. He said, fuck you. And he hung up the phone. So I picked up the phone and I called his home, which I knew obviously he wasn't at. Because I needed to say something and not be interrupted. So I called his voicemail and I told him, you cannot call me. I will not respond until you acknowledge you're going to follow these 4 rules. And to this day, he's never called me and said he would acknowledge those 4 rules. But I shared all of that to say, wrapped up in all of that was like, I had hope that I could design my life. One of the things also I'm very proud of, that was the last night I ever saw family violence. Like, I've never seen violence in my home after that night. And I'm proud of it because the reason that that's a true statement is because I chose it. I decided this ain't happening in my life anymore. And I genuinely believe, like, I'm alive today because I figured out a way to remove family violence. Now, I hoped that the family violence would be removed and my dad would, like, find his way back. But that's on him. Like, he gets to choose that or not choose that. I chose I'm going to live a life without family violence. I chose I'm going to live a life without trying to appease this man. I chose I'm going to live a life that's more about my dreams, goals, hopes, and outcomes. And in that hope was my ability to build a life by design instead of the craziness that was happening around me.
Man, so you haven't talked to your dad in 20 plus years. You're telling me if he called right now and was like, yo, Elliot, I've had a lot of time to think. I know it's been a long time. I'm ready to follow those 4 rules. Would you reconcile and have that conversation?
100%.
Okay.
1,000%.
Okay.
I actually have no anger, no resentment.
Okay.
But he has not acknowledged that he would obey those rules even to this day. So until you do, I don't really have anything to talk to you about.
So is your mom still alive?
Yeah, my mom's
Okay.
still alive.
You talk to your mom?
Yeah.
Have y'all ever talked? I'm assuming you guys have talked about like the fact that you and your father haven't talked for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Does she have any specific take on it? Like, or she's just like, yeah, I kind of knew this was kind of where it was going.
My mother supports me.
Okay.
My mother means a lot to me. My mother's the kind of person that if you're happy, she's happy. Like she just wants you to be happy.
Okay.
I'm sure that I shouldn't even say that. I was going to say I'm sure she would prefer that we talk, but I don't even think that she cares. To be honest with you.
Okay.
Because he's not allowed to call her. Over those 20 years, we have probably had like 2 or 3 conversations, but they weren't conversations. For example, the next time I talked to him was probably, 5 years later. I found out that he was calling my mother, and I had to reach out to him and say, stop doing that. You're not allowed to call my mother. If you call my mother, you and I are going to have an issue. And it was one of those things like, in that moment, it's like, I'm prepared to spend the rest of my life in prison. You are not calling my mother, just so you know how clear I am about this. And another time, because he triggers my mother. My mother struggles with some mental health issues, and how could you not, being married to a guy like that for as long as she was? So at my younger brother's college graduation, my dad was walking towards her, and I stood in his way, and I was like, over there. And again, in those moments, I'm going to do whatever it is necessary to prevent you from talking to that woman. And he complies. But other than that, we have not spoken. Not spoken in 20 years. And I don't know that my mom cares so much. I think it was hard for her at the time.
Yeah.
Like watching your son not get along with the man that was your husband, because they were separated for a long time at that point. But I think she understands the choices that I had to make. And I genuinely believe I'm here on this earth still because I made that choice.
I want to ask you a little bit about healing. Do you feel like it's a continuous journey? Like you're always healing these things that, okay. And why do you feel that way?
Because life is always giving you opportunities to experience pain. And some of the DMX said in one of his albums, like, to live is to suffer. So I think healing is a constant process of taking care of oneself. And the moment you declare yourself healed is the moment you stop taking care of yourself, which causes you to be injured again.
Yeah.
So I think healing is something that you have to take seriously throughout the whole journey of life, because it never really goes away.
You said something interesting now. I'm just thinking about right now. You said opportunities to experience pain. What do you mean by opportunities?
Because life will just do stuff. It'll just give you chances to experience hurt. And eventually you're going to take one of those chances. You're going to have one of those opportunities. But it's impossible to live this life without having a grief issue, because we all lose things. It's impossible to live this life without having a health issue that have mental health ramifications. It's impossible to not see that. Like, I share this too with people. Like, I can remember going to school. I was in high school, and we had a class called Current Events.
Okay.
And back then there was a magazine called Newsweek. Okay. And we didn't have a textbook, but every week they would give us this Newsweek, and we would talk about the current events. And one day the teacher was talking to us about how when he was a kid, he watched a man shot on live television. And we were like, what? And he was like, yeah, like JFK was shot by this guy called Lee Harvey Oswald. And the whole world was watching when they were moving Lee Harvey Oswald from the jail to the courthouse. And this guy, Jack Ruby, walked up and shot him in live television. And we were like, oh my God, that's crazy. Because in the 1990s, there's no YouTube, there's no social media. Like now, I will just look at my phone and I'll open up Facebook just to see what's going on. And I will see a murder. Like, so in the human, we're not designed to have access to the kind of information we have access to with the frequency with which we have access to it. We're not designed for this. Mm-hmm. So we have seen a tremendous increase in anxiety, a tremendous increase in depression. I don't know how you can live in this world and not deal with those things.
Right.
So you have to address your mental health in whatever ways. Like I said, it might be psychiatry, it might be psychotherapy, it might be engaging in hobbies with people that you know, love, and care about. But I don't know how you live on this earth and declare yourself healed when the earth is continuing to stab you. Like you're going to continue to get wounded. There's no way. While we've been doing this interview, my phone is over there somewhere. When I go pick up that phone, they're very well, neither one of us, this entire interview, have looked at our phones. Mm-hmm. We have lived in a world right now. 9/11 has happened. Katrina has happened. All kinds of wars going on, economic crises. You and I do not know what has happened in this world in the last hour. We could look at our phones and everything be falling apart. Mm-hmm. We have no idea. But what we do know is everything falls apart. We're going to be told about it. Because it used to be, I had to go seek information, right? If I want to know what's going on in the world, I had to watch the 8 o'clock news. That's how the world used to be. Yeah. I would live my life completely ignorant to what's going on anywhere. Then you sit down with the 8 o'clock news and you get caught up. That's not the world we live in. Information now comes and finds us. And the human brain is not designed to deal with that level of information flow. And it is not designed to deal with the kind of information that is flowing towards us. So, yeah, the moment you declare yourself healed, you then stop taking care of yourself, which we do. If you have an illness like the flu and the doctor says, all right, take these medications, oftentimes you'll get antibiotics, and the doctor's like, take these. And then once you feel better, you stop taking them. Well, I want people to view mental health as like a lifelong antibody. Like, you have to do things for the rest of your life to take care of yourself because you're constantly exposed to things that your brain experiences as a germ. And the things that happen in our phones, man, is crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Man, and I think one of the things too that I wanted to talk to you about is therapy obviously being one of the modalities or things that we can do to help us to obviously heal as potentially like an antibody or one of the things that we do to take care of our mental health. But I think oftentimes for us as Black men, we get confused around what therapy actually is. We look at social media or just what we see in society and we look at somebody sitting on a couch and then we think that therapy is just talking about our problems.
Right.
So can you explain to me the different types of modalities and therapies that are available to us and the different modalities that you think would potentially be helpful for Black men? And also how we can shift our mindset around what therapy actually is.
Yeah, I probably can't answer that question. I don't have enough time.
Okay.
I mean, because there's a ton, to your point, there's a ton of different ways to do the job of therapy. And for some therapists, therapy is just sitting in the office talking about your problems. Okay. I happen to not be an advocate for those kinds of therapies because I think therapy should be about change, hope, and healing. Okay. And the kind of therapy that I do it's called solution-focused brief therapy. Okay. And it really is about identifying the life you want to live and then creating a pathway to getting to that life. And I think you're right. A lot of people, you'll see therapy on TV and it's just some guy or girl just griping about their problems or unloading on the therapist. But I don't think that's quality therapy. I think good quality therapy is about change, it's about hope, and it's about healing. So and here's the thing that I think is a problem with therapy. Let's say I said to you, hey man, I know you've been struggling with this, or this. You should contact a therapist. It'll make a difference in your life. And you're like, yeah, Elliot, thanks. You're right. I've been struggling. I'm going to go call this therapist. If you go see the therapist and it doesn't work, you then determine that therapy didn't work. Yep. Instead of that therapist didn't work. And I think we need to start treating therapists like individual things instead of they represent the whole thing of therapy. So if you go see one therapist and it doesn't work, then fire that therapist and go find another therapist until you find one that, okay, when I talk to that person, I feel better. And I think we need to change that, and we need to change that very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Because every therapist does the job differently, and different therapists have their different strengths. And quite frankly, some therapists just aren't good at what they do.
Right.
Like some therapists just are not good therapists. So if you happen to find yourself in a therapist's office where they're just not good at this, go see someone else. It doesn't mean therapy didn't work. It just meant that person didn't work.
Yeah, and the way my brain processes this, when my first car that I got, it was a Nissan Sentra. I remember going to the dealership with my parents, and I didn't want it. They did a bait and switch with me. They literally, I'm telling you, like they had a advertisement up for a car online that I wanted. It was a Hyundai Sonata. I really wanted that car. I'm like, man, this car looks great. It's right in my budget. I go and look at it. They didn't show me the other side of it, which was damaged. Right. Now that I'm there, the salesman is like, oh, but we got this other car. It's like really safe. He knows I'm with my parents, so he's selling my parents. Right. He's like, oh, this car is really safe. You know, you won't have to worry about it. X, Y, and Z, right? So my parents see me get in the car like, man, this would be great for you. Just get it. So I end up getting that car, right? And I say all this to say that 2 years later, car broke down on me. I hated the car. I was so upset about it. But I didn't say I'm never going to drive a car again. Exactly. I didn't say I'm never going to get another car. I said, you know what? Nissans are probably not the car for me. Maybe I don't get a Nissan Sentra. Maybe I get this type of car. That's right. That doesn't have a CTV engine because that's what ended up failing on me. That's absolutely right. Right? So that's the same way I think about therapy, right? It's like, just because this therapist didn't work for me doesn't mean that I'm not going to find a therapist that can work for me. That's absolutely right. I want to take it back to what you said about solution-focused brief therapy. What are some principles of that you feel like would help Black men? Wow. That's funny. I don't know if I've ever actually thought about that. Mm-hmm. I think about the principles of this a lot because I spend a lot of my time teaching this. Okay. But here, I'll tell you what. I think the biggest principle, solution-based brief therapy is really about change. Okay. How do I change my life? And I think sometimes as Black men and Black people, we focus on the wrong shit. Okay. And what I mean by that, it is an accurate description that there has been a lot of systemic racism in our society that could reasonably explain how sometimes our daily lived experience is not what we want it to be. Mm-hmm. Because it's accurate, it almost serves as a justification to stay in the circumstances where we are. Yep. Because it is in fact accurate. Yeah. We have been oppressed. Yep. We are being oppressed. Mm-hmm. We are living in a society where they are trying to actively remove our access to things that would give us a quality of life. That is happening today in our life. And because it's accurate, we spend a lot of time, I'm trying to make sure I word this correctly, but we spend a lot of our time trying to get people to see that it's accurate. So then if they see that it's accurate, they would change it. But I actually think two things are important. I'm one of those people, like, I don't think the system is broken. I think it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. So trying to help people to see that it's broken is not really going to help us because they're clearly not going to fix it. And the other thing that, and this relates back to your question, like, what do I think solution-focused therapy does? It helps you focus on, like, given that these are the circumstances, what do I need to do to make my life better? Because systemically, we are exposed to challenges that other cultures aren't. Mm-hmm. But individually, you do have a lot of power and ability to transform your life. And there's lots of examples of people doing that. So what I think the greatest principle of solution-focused brief therapy that Black people, Black culture would benefit from is autonomy. Okay. Given that all those things are true, you still can focus on change and creating the life you want to have. Mm. So when you say autonomy, is that synonymous with like personal accountability?
No, I mean, I think personal accountability is a part of it, but autonomy is just freedom. Like, okay, like, yes, the circumstances are stacked against us, which I believe is absolutely true. But it is also true that there are things I can do, and not only that, there are things that I could do that my grandparents couldn't. Right. That there are things that I can do that that could change my life. Like in my case, going to college.
Right.
In my case, going to graduate school. There are things I can do. And I experienced massive racism while I was in graduate school. So it's like, I'm in no way saying that there are things you can do and it will be smooth.
Right.
But there are things you can do that change the outcome. Because while I was in graduate school, I had white professors overtly treat me differently than my white peers. But I'm not going to quit because of that. And I'm going to continue to push through. And as I continue to push through, I was able to change my lived experience. So I think that there is personal accountability in that there's always something you can do to make your life better. And I think the greatest way we can respect our ancestors is to acknowledge there are things that I can do that my ancestors could not have done. It was once a time it was illegal for a black person to go to college.
Right.
And I was able to use college to change my life.
Why do you feel like so many of us allow our trauma to define us, or just the circumstances to define us?
Because they're accurate.
Okay.
Because like it's true. Like the easiest thing I can do is if you said to me, and I want to make a really nuanced distinction here. If you said to me, like, Elliot, I'm failing because like I can only work on Tuesday. And then I can be like, bro, that's crazy. You can work any day you want. And I can dispel the inaccuracy in the things that you're saying. But if you said to me like, Elliot, I'm really struggling because it's harder to be a black male than it is to be any other culture, you're actually correct.
Right.
So it's harder for me to dispel that.
Yes.
But what I have to do is in essence say to you, but do it anyway. Like there's a movie, there's a basketball legend, a New York City street ball legend called Earl Manigault.
Okay.
They used to call him the GOAT. And there's a real guy, there's a documentary about him. He was a basketball legend in the 60s and 70s here in New York City. And he got hooked on heroin. And all these people tried to convince him, like, bro, get off heroin and you're going to be a professional player. And this one guy was mentoring him. The guy who started Rucker Park, Mr. Rucker, was mentoring Earl Manigault. And he said to him, if you stay on this path, like you got to go to college, keep playing basketball, you're going to be a professional player. And Earl Manigault said back to him in this movie, he said, there are only 2 black players on each team. And Mr. Rucker said, and you could be one of them. So is he accurate? It's harder to be a professional athlete as a black man in the society it was at the time. Yes, he's accurate, but you still got to try. Like you still got to do it. And that's what I would say is the subtle nuance. Like I knew when I was going into graduate school, I was going to be one of few black people there. I knew the professors didn't look like me, and I knew that it made it very likely that I was going to experience challenges as a consequence of it. And when it happened, I was tempted to quit. It sucks. Like, it is hard and unfair when you know I wrote a better paper than the people next to me, but they got a better grade because that professor has a bias against people like me. I knew that, but I also knew, but I have to keep going. So sometimes because it's an accurate experience, we get bogged down by the trauma and the pain, and it doesn't feel good. So we do what everybody wants to do. It's like, if going in that room causes me pain, I'm not going in that room.
Right.
But I think we have to go in that room because that's where your purpose is. I continued because I believed very strongly, I believe to this day, that doing psychotherapy was in line with my purpose. So I have to stay here. I have to graduate. In spite of whatever challenges you put in front of me, I got to graduate. I have to successfully do this, because if I don't, you've changed my purpose. And what I think happens in black culture, which I would do anything to change this. Imagine if these professors who caused me grief contributed to me quitting. I now live a job where I make an income that I couldn't have believed at one point. I make an impact I couldn't believe at one point. I've written several books. I've traveled the world. If I had stopped that, I would have a different job. And I'm not a 9-to-5 sit in my office kind of person. But I sometimes think man, if I had stopped, I would have a 9-to-5 kind of cubicle kind of job, and I would ultimately be miserable. And I think as black people, the best way that we can change this society. Can you imagine if black people in the society just said, man, fuck it, I'm pursuing my dream? If all of us, just as a culture, we're going to become the very best of ourselves individually, and we would be unstoppable. But sometimes I think you're right. We let the trauma and impact of systemic generational racism impact us. But what if we just said, nah, man, we doing this.
Yeah.
We're going to become the things that we want to become. We would be an unstoppable force. And I think we are an unstoppable force.
Yeah. Do you think part of that has to do with how we approach the way we view the world in terms of like, because I feel like you've said something about like the world being an algorithm and giving you what you want. Do you feel like that's part of it as well?
I do. I think the world is an algorithm and it gives you what you want when you just decide this is what I'm going to want. This is what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I think the world will like align itself to give you what you want. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of like the universe. It's going to align itself to give you things you want if you really actually truly want it. And I don't think we come from a culture where we've been able to historically pursue what we want. Mm. And I think about, like in 1921, something happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma that has become known as the Tulsa Massacre, when black people, and I saw somebody on social media, he was like, if black people, like, there's some racist person on social media said, if black people created their own culture and their own society, we'd leave them alone.
Yeah, I remember.
Do you see that?
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
No, that there is no historical evidence that is actually true.
Right.
Because in this particular case, black people said, okay, fine. And they went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they built an amazing society. Mm-hmm. It was known as Black Wall Street. It was black businesses, black churches, black everything. And they bombed it. Mm-hmm. Like, they literally bombed it. The United States, they bombed it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just a riot. It was a bombing. They bombed it. If you go to Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street right now, there's nothing for you to see. Mm-hmm. It was bombed. There are plaques on the ground where it says, like, this business stood here. And then there's another plaque over there. This business stood here. Then another, like, it's gone. And that's really significant. Right? At the time, Tulsa, Oklahoma was about the size of Atlanta, Georgia. At the time, 1921. So we come from a historical context when we do take care of ourselves and when we do become our very best, it has been removed from us. Mm-hmm. It has been taken from us. And there's a lot of historical evidence for that. 1921 was just 104 years ago. Now, that might sound like a lot, but that means my grandparents were alive when this happened. Like, this is just one, maybe two generations ago, right? So now I'm sitting here saying in 2025, let's become our greatness. Mm-hmm. And I mean that as individuals, because when we do that as individuals, then it impacts society. Mm-hmm. But historically, when we do that, it has caused real problems. Right. There's evidence of lynchings because some black man became successful. There's evidence of bombings and massacres and riots because some black community became successful. But I want us to continue to be successful and continue to pursue our own greatness.
What do you feel like are some tools that we could use to not only be successful, but also to combat some of the things that we deal with? Because you said there's a high level of anxiety, there's a high level of depression. Yeah. What are some tools that we as men can use specifically to navigate those things? Because I feel like we're navigating those things right now. We're just very silent about it.
So number one is reading.
Okay.
I think people should read more. I get sad because I don't think we use libraries in the same way that we used to.
Not at all.
Because now we're just doom scrolling on TikTok and Instagram, and I'm just as guilty about that as everybody else. Mm-hmm. But like, read stories of inspirational people doing inspirational things, because I think the greatest tool is anything that will inspire you. I also think we need to spend some time disconnecting from social media. And then lastly, the greatest tool is exercise. I think we need to exercise, and not just because you want to be attractive, but like one of the greatest things you can do for mental health is 30 minutes of aerobic exercise, because that will calm your body. that relaxes. It really takes care of depression and anxiety. When you do 30 minutes of aerobic exercise, your body releases endorphins. You ever hear people talk about a runner's high?
Yeah.
That's actually true. That's real.
Yeah.
So, exercise, specifically, at least 30 minutes of aerobic exercise will drastically impact your anxiety and depression experiences.
And what do you mean by aerobic exercise? What is that?
Like running, cycling, something where you're breathing. Like aerobic exercises are things where you're moving and require heavy breathing. Anaerobic exercises like weightlifting and that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
So
So powerlifting could be a thing.
powerlifting is anaerobic.
Okay.
But like going for a 30-minute run, going for a 30-minute walk, swimming in a pool for 30 minutes, cycling for 30 minutes, all those things that cause you to breathe deeply, your body will reward you by releasing these amazing endorphins that are good for your mental health and physical health, but good for your mental health as well.
Can we get a little deep? Because we have a section of this podcast where we ask deeper questions. We've talked about most of it already, but there's some other questions that I want to ask you. And the reason why is because a friend of my friend passed by suicide this year. And so my friend, knowing the platform that I have, challenged me to have more, as much as we talk about mental health, he challenged me to have even deeper conversations on the podcast to highlight certain things. So is it okay if we get even deeper?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, cool. So my first question to you, because the first question I normally ask is like, have you ever experienced depression? You already talked about that.
Yes, sir.
So the second question would be, have you ever experienced heartbreak? And what was that like?
Yeah, of course I experienced heartbreak. Gosh. You want me to tell you what happened?
Yeah. What was that like? Yeah. Whatever instance that first came to your mind, that's like, man, this is the heartbreak that I'm thinking about right now. This is the first thing that came to mind. If you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, no, of course. Of course. When I was in high school, it was the first time I remember having my heart like truly broken. I was dating a girl named Sarah.
Okay.
And Sarah, like I was an athlete, Sarah was an athlete, she was on the soccer team. And she was, one of the it girls in the school, and I was one of the it guys at the school. And Sarah and I started dating. Gosh, I think I was a junior. And trying to remember exactly what happened. Because now, obviously, I'm over this particular heartbreak. But at the time, I was devastated.
It was everything to you.
I was devastated.
Yeah.
So I had a small circle of friends. And in that small circle of friends was this kid named Jeff. And all of a sudden, Sarah stops, like, talking to me. Like, we would talk. And I'm talking high school. You talk on the phone each night. And you walk each other to class. And, fool around a little on the weekends, that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, like, she's not really returning my calls. When we do talk, it's different. And then we break up. She breaks up with me. And I was crushed. I was absolutely crushed. But then a few months later, my best friend Kyle, who I talked about earlier, I don't know why Kyle did this, but he was like, hey, man, I got to tell you something. I need to tell you why Sarah broke up with you. And I was like,
how do you know that?
Yeah, like, what do you? He said, Jeff was telling Sarah behind your back that you don't really like her. He was telling Sarah behind your back that, like, you're not really into her. And then Jeff slept with her. And I was crushed. Not just because Sarah had broken up with me for things that are not accurate, but now I have heartbreak because this thing with Sarah, and now finding out one of the people in my circle betrayed me in that way.
Nah, Jeff is a snake.
Jeff is a...
Where Jeff at, man?
Yeah. I found him on social media not too long ago. I was like...
He said, Jeff, we got some things to talk about.
So we had some issues in high school after that, clearly.
For sure.
But I don't know. It's been 30 years. Maybe a year or two ago. I was like, man, what's this dude doing?
Yeah.
I found him on social media, and I was like, yeah, your life don't look like it worked out super great.
Okay. So you're good.
I'm good. But Jeff is a snake.
Nah, Jeff is crazy.
Jeff is a snake.
That's crazy.
He did it to another one of my ex-girlfriends shortly after that, too. Jeff is a snake.
He did it twice?
He did it twice. Jeff is a snake.
Don't be a Jeff, y'all.
Yeah.
Get the Jeffs out your circle. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah,
You got to drop some people off.
You got to drop some people off. And you have to be asshole enough to be. Now, people like Jeff will make it very overt. Like, I can't have you around, bro. You got to go.
Right.
But you got to get those people out. If they're not helping you, they're dragging you down.
Oh, no. Jeff is crazy.
Yeah, man. That heartbreak stuck with me for a few years, man.
Yeah. So what did you do? Like, how'd you navigate? Did you do anything specifically to get over that? Or like, was it just naturally over time you kind of?
Well, over time, it helped. And then I remember being like super happy. Here's something I feel bad about the people growing up in the social media generation.
Okay.
At the time, I remember being super happy that the next year I was going to college. Because like when you go to college in 1994 and 1995, you're never going to see those people again.
Right.
But now on social media, y'all never stop seeing the people. Like you said, you're 28 earlier we started talking.
Yeah.
You don't really remember a world when social media wasn't connected.
Yeah, not really. Yeah.
But when I was graduating from high school, high school graduation was one of the saddest days of your life because you knew I'm never going to see these people again.
Yeah.
But these generations, graduation not sad because y'all stay connected via social media.
Right.
So I was so excited that I'm going to be leaving this place and I was never going to have to look these knuckleheads again in the face.
Yeah. Oh, so okay. That kind of helped David.
That helped me.
Was there ever a moment in your life that you felt like deeply misunderstood? And if so, what?
Every moment. I feel leadership requires being misunderstood. And I'm the leader of a large company. I'm a leader in the field of psychotherapy. I'm a leader in the world of advocating for mental health and addressing our mental health. So I feel misunderstood almost every day of my life. I'm constantly misunderstood.
How do you navigate that?
I just deal with it. I really feel like as long as I tell my truth, and when I watch back the video of me being interviewed or me doing the thing, as long as I explained it the way I wanted to explain it, then I can live with people misunderstanding it. Because people don't hear what you said. They hear what they processed of what you said. And people
break that down.
Yeah. We listen from the perspective of where we are versus what the person actually said. And there's a lot of content of me online. And as long as I'm okay with what I said, I have to live with people being like I went on the Breakfast Club. I've been on the Breakfast Club a few times, but the first time I was on the Breakfast Club, I was talking about how we should we should stop hearing our children talking back as disrespectful.
Right.
And we should start hearing our children talking back as they're practicing using their voice. And
I've seen that clip.
If you read the comments of that clip, there's a lot of misunderstanding. There's people are like,
yeah. People hate that.
Well, they're saying stuff like, he's saying that you should be okay with your kid talking back. That's not what I said.
You should be okay with your kid being disrespectful, basically.
That's not what I said.
Yeah, I know.
What I said was the child's not being disrespectful. They're practicing using their voice. You still have to parent it. If they use the voice inappropriately, you should punish them. But people were like, this dude is saying you should just allow your kids to say whatever.
That's that white stuff.
Yeah, there were people like, whose white husband is this? Like, and I was like, man, there is an urge. Like, I want to call every single one of y'all and be like, let me explain.
Yeah.
But the truth is, people are going to hear you through the filter with which they are living their life.
Man.
And there's really nothing I can do about that.
Man, I used to have such a hard time with that, bro. Because we put out a lot of content.
Right.
So, and we're talking about black men's mental health. I'm talking about my perspectives on things. And so, like, we would get some comments sometimes. And I'm just like, man, that was not what I said. That wasn't my intention. I don't know how you got that from that. But, like, I didn't even know that this would blow up in this way. And, like, now I'm trying to explain myself to hundreds of people. And it doesn't work out.
No.
So, I used to have a very hard time with that. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because one of the things I had to do was really just, one, stop reading certain comments. Like, one, because you'll find yourself reading somebody's trauma, basically. Because a lot of times when people are triggered enough to make a nasty comment, it's really a traumatic, like it's something traumatic is going on.
Right.
Like it's a trigger for something that was they haven't processed yet, or they don't even know that they need to process.
That's right.
And that's coming up in the way that they're responding to your content. So, like, I've had to have moments where I regulate myself and got to a point where I realized like I really can't read comments too much for
Well, also, a lot of times, well, first of all, I'm at a place now where I love being misunderstood because it means I'm saying something. Like, I don't want everybody to agree with me because it means I'm not saying anything.
Okay.
And I've also realized that some people don't want your truth to be accurate because they're benefiting from what was happening before. And I'm a big believer in, like, we should challenge status quo. But most people, if anyone is benefiting from status quo, they're going to fight the truth because they want to continue to benefit from status quo. Like, they actually don't want change.
Right.
Like, and this is true for everybody who's presenting new, innovative, and important information. Like, people used to genuinely believe the earth was flat. Like, they genuinely believe that.
People still believe that.
I don't even talk to those people. Like, but people used to legitimately believe the earth was flat.
Right.
Can you imagine the first person who was like, no, it's round, and here's how I know that? They thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
And can you imagine if, so let's say I make $1 million a year selling flat earth maps, and then you start promoting this idea that the earth is round, I'm going to psychologically, I got to protect the fact that I make millions of dollars selling flat earth maps.
Right.
And that's what people do. So if I say, in Black culture, when your child talks back, they're in fact not being disrespectful, they're practicing using their voice. Well, now that I've said that, and by the way, I don't think that's an arguable fact. I don't think that's something you can argue about. That is an inarguable fact. In a lot of cases, these kids are too young to even know what disrespect is. So if I'm a 6-year-old kid and I'm playing a game on my iPad and my mom comes and says to me, it's bedtime, and I say, I don't want to go to bed. I'm going to go to bed later because I want to keep playing the iPad. That kid doesn't know what disrespect is. They're just finally being like, oh, I can want something other than what this person's telling. And they're processing all of that, right? Like that's what is happening. That's just an accurate statement of human development and how we learn to use our voices. You can't argue with that, even though people try to. You can't argue with that. That is just truth, right? It is just truth. But when you hear it in a podcast such as this, you feel like, no, but that ain't how my grandmother taught my mama and my mama taught me. So now that you've heard that, this new truth is now challenging your previously held beliefs.
Yeah.
And most people are too insecure to deal with something being a challenge to their previously held beliefs.
Well, let me ask you this too. Why is it important for children to practice their voice? Why can't they just be quiet?
Because you want people that are going to stand up for themselves. You want people who are going to be able to speak their mind. You want people that are going to be able to advocate for themselves. I'll tell you this. Let's say I've got a kid and I give my child an allowance. I give my child $10 a week. That's their allowance. I've been doing that since my child was in middle school. But they're now in high school, still giving them the same $10 a week. They now have a car. They need gas. If my child coming to me asking me for a raise in their allowance causes me to feel like you were being out of pocket, you should be lucky I gave you what I gave you. That child, when they're 30, they're not going to ask for a raise in their job. When they're 30 and their boss isn't treating them appropriately, they're not going to stand up for themselves and go talk to HR. Like, you need to raise people that are confident enough to stand up on their truth and advocate for themselves. So if you perceive your child's advocation as your child disrespecting you, then you are teaching that child not to advocate for themselves in totality.
Yeah.
And they grow up just going along with what life delivers to them. And especially for Black people, our success is an anomaly. So like, I have to advocate for myself differently than anybody else.
Yep.
So I need to know that I know how to do that. I need to know that I know how to advocate for opportunities, education, proper compensation. Like, I need to know. There's a guy, I love this dude, so I'll say his name. His name is Mark McCurgo. And Mark McCurgo, he's a white guy from the UK. And when I tell you brilliant, I mean, this dude is brilliant. He became a coach, a solution-focused brief therapy coach. In his previous job, he was a rocket engineer, basically a rocket scientist. And I asked him one time, why did you start doing solution-focused work when you had this job as a engineer working on rockets? He said, because I was bored. Like, that's how smart this dude is.
Okay.
And my presence in the psychotherapy field caused a lot of disruption. They've never seen, a black dude who represents the hip hop culture. Most of the people, 55, 60-year-old white people, and I'm 30, sagging my pants and, listening to Jay-Z. They just didn't know what to do with that. And I remember, and Mark McCurgo was part of that. Like, he watched it. He was a part of all the world going on. And he's an older white dude. And he said, Elliot, I've been raised not to ruffle feathers. He said, like, white culture, we view feather rufflers as bad. And he said, I got to be honest. I used to watch you and wonder, why is Elliot consistently ruffling feathers? Mm-hmm. And he said, and then one day it hit me. You're actually not ruffling feathers. Your presence is. And he became one of our allies, because he realized, like, you didn't do anything. It's just your presence ruffled feathers. And I need to support you because you have every right to be here as anyone else. Now, I share that story in response to you talking about this advocation thing, because if you're black and you want to go into an industry where everybody doesn't look like you, you need to know how to stand up for yourself. Like, I went into an industry where not everybody looks like me. There were multiple times when I was in graduate school, I was the only black student in the class. And when I go into this field, there are lots of conferences where I go and there are no black people in the audience. There are lots of conferences where I go speak and there's no black people on the faculty speaking at these conferences except me. So how do you think I feel when I find out that every other speaker got paid X and I got paid less than X? Like, I got to be able to say, well, then I'm not, you're going to have to give me what I'm worth, right? So if we just raise compliant children, then they never learn how to advocate for themselves in a world in which they need that skill.
What do you feel like is the number one habit, behavior trait, or just thing, technique, whatever, that we overlook when it comes to building a healthy relationship?
Growth.
Growth. What do you mean by that?
When you get into a relationship, and so in America, the average marriage takes place around 27, 28. It's getting older.
Okay.
A generation ago, it would have been older, but now it's the late 20s. So let's say two people meet, get married around 28. They're not going to be the same people at 38, 48, 58, 68. So I think the number one skill we need to make a relationship work is the ability to evolve and to continue to learn about your partner, because they're just not the same person at 38 as they were at 28, as they will be at 40. Like, they're just not. So you have to be able to evolve, grow, and change. And most of us, as a therapist, people come to my office all the time and they say, we've grown apart. Well, what that means to me is you both grew, but you didn't do it together, and you didn't do it in a way that facilitated the other person's growth. So if you want a relationship to live and thrive, it's got to be about being conjoined in the growth process. What
are some things that we can do to make sure that we're conjoined in the growth process in a relationship?
Talk and sacrifice.
Okay.
And what I mean by talk and sacrifice, honest talk and sacrifice.
Okay.
So I'm a person, I love the city. I'm a city guy. I want to live like in an apartment on Times Square.
Okay.
Like, I want to be in the middle of everything. Let's say I meet a woman who grew up on a farm and we start dating. I find her wildly attractive. She finds me wildly attractive. And then we start like, all right, so where are we going to live? An honest conversation is, she's got to tell me I cannot live in Times Square.
Right.
I'm a farm girl. I want to live in Oklahoma. And I've got to tell her, I don't want to live in Oklahoma. I'm a city guy. I want to live on Times Square. And that might mean that I'm not the right person for you. But what ends up happening, and this is why people like me are very busy and we see lots of clients, what ends up happening is we get clouded by things like attraction. So it's like, and then we over-sacrifice without realizing we're doing it. So that girl says, you know what? I really like you. I'll move to Times Square. But 10 years later, she's now got 2 kids and she's absolutely miserable because she misses the farm, or vice versa. I move onto the farm because she's really attractive. I really like her. I'll go live in a farm. And 10 years later, I'm absolutely miserable and I feel stuck and I feel trapped. People come to my office all the time and say, I just feel stuck in this life. Well, if they track back to a decision they made X number of years prior, you gave something away that you shouldn't have given away. When we need to have the ability to say, look, I really like you. I even love you. But I'm not sure we can build a life together because I think my mental health will suffer if I move to Oklahoma and live on a farm. And this person will say, well, I think my life will really suffer if I move to Times Square and live in the middle of the busiest city in the world. So maybe we're not right to build a life. We get along, we're compatible, blah, 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 but maybe we're not right to build a life together.
Right.
And that's okay. Like, that's okay. But we don't usually have those honest conversations. So when we're already in a relationship, there are tons of times when, like, we're living in New York City and everything is great and everything's going wonderful. And then I get a job offer that's like, oh, I got to take this job and we got to move to Portland, Oregon. And then we do. And it's like, well, maybe we shouldn't have taken that job offer.
Yeah.
Because it caused us to change. And change is a difficult thing. I don't know. Do you like sports? You a sports fan?
I am.
So there are times where you will see a player who's very, very good on a particular team. This happens all the time. Very, very good on a particular team. And then he gets traded and he's terrible.
Yeah.
Or signs as a free agent on another team and he's terrible.
Yep.
Well, the reason that happens is sometimes the environment contributes to your success. Right now we're living in a world, I don't know when people are going to watch this podcast, but the NFL season has just started.
Yes.
And Micah Parsons was traded from the Dallas Cowboys to the Green Bay Packers. And I just watched an interview yesterday where the reporters are asking him what's different. And he said, I've never been to a team, obviously the only other team he played for the Dallas Cowboys, where all of the players are in the facility at the same time. And then he jokingly said, I mean, there's really nothing to do here anyway, but it's still nice that all the players are in the facility. Well, imagine if I play for the Green Bay Packers and there's nothing for me to do but go to work. I'm going to be better at my job. Well, there's nothing to do. I'll go work out and I'll go study more. I'll go watch more film. I'll go do all the things necessary. Well, in Dallas, there's a lot more to do. So maybe certain players would thrive in a place like Green Bay that wouldn't thrive in a place like Dallas. Or maybe there's certain players that would thrive in a place like Milwaukee that wouldn't thrive in a place like LA. Kobe Bryant used to say, like, LA requires a very particular type personality because there's a lot of distractions in LA.
Right.
There's not as many distractions if you play for the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think that that's just true about life, where it's like, we have a circumstance that's working, and then we change the circumstance and don't realize that that's going to cause the relationship to crumble and fall apart. And we think, oh, you changed or I changed. No, that's not true. You just changed the circumstances around you by not accepting maybe we need to keep things as they are so that we can grow and evolve in this particular space.
I got one last question for you.
All right.
You said something about sacrifice and honest talk. But then you said sometimes too much sacrifice can be bad.
Yeah.
So how do we know when we're at the right, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do we know when we're in the right amount of sacrifice?
Again, I would say something I said before. It's like, you always know. Like, there are certain things I can't give up. I can't give up writing. Like, I'm a writer. I write every single day.
Okay.
There's not a day I don't pull out my laptop and write something. I'm a writer. If I were with a partner who was like, your writing drives me nuts, I don't want you writing anymore, I know if I give that up, I'm going to pay a mental health sacrifice for that. But there are other things that aren't super important to me. Like, I don't drink soda anymore. And if I was with a partner who was like, you drinking too much soda, oh, okay, I'll just stop drinking soda. That's not as important to me. So people have to just get clear about what are the things that I need, that I require. And then you just never negotiate those things away, and then everything else is on the table.
Man, Elliot, this has been a great conversation, man.
I hope so.
Can you tell the people where they can find you, how they can tap in with you, anything that you have coming up?
Yeah.
Are you taking clients right now or no?
Yeah. I mean, I always take clients.
Okay.
Well, you can find me online. Go to my website at elliottconnie.com. You can find me on YouTube. Just search the name Elliott Connie. You can find me on social media. My handle across all social media platforms is at Elliot Speaks. Make sure you spell my name correctly, 2 L's and 2 T's, but at Elliot Speaks. And I would love to connect with people and let y'all yell at me about something I said on this interview or hug me for something I said in this interview. I hope I said something that would inspire at least one person, because that's why I do what I do.
Yeah. And then I lied. I have one more question.
All right.
Yeah. So the team will kill me if I don't ask you this.
Okay.
So we have a tradition on our podcast where we ask our guests, when we end the episode, we ask our guests to talk to a black man that's struggling. So to the black man right now that may be watching this episode and is struggling with whatever the case may be, it could be something that we talked about, it could be anything that's on your mind. What would you say to him?
I would say, in 20 years of practicing psychotherapy, I've never met a problem, regardless of how significant, that more self-love couldn't impact positively. So if you're out there struggling, things aren't going your way, you're anxious, depressed, sad, overwhelmed, love yourself more. And do something today that is evidence of self-love. Now, that might be taking better care of your body. That might be calling someone that you love and care about. That might be literally looking in the mirror and reminding yourself that you do love yourself. But what we tend to do when things aren't going our way is we beat ourselves up, and we don't even realize that exacerbates the problem. But if there is one thing I want you to do, man, is learn how to love on you. And if you can love on yourself, just about any circumstance in your life will improve.
Elliot, my brother, I appreciate you.
No problem, man.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you are planning an event or you are part of your organization's Black employee group and you are interested in having dope Black mental health professionals or myself come in and do a speaking engagement or a workshop or a keynote address or a panel, please click the link in our bio on Instagram or TikTok, scroll down and click book us for speaking and brand deals and fill out the form available on our website. Once you fill out the form, one of our team members will get back to you about how we can collaborate and create something dope for your organization. This is an unparalleled opportunity. We are currently the largest Black men's mental health platform, and we have a few slots available for our calendar year, and we would love to partner with you to create something dope for your organization if it makes sense for both parties, right? So go to the link in our bio, scroll down, click book us for speaking and brand deals, and fill out that form. If you're not on Instagram, the link should be linked in our description of this episode. And it is also on our website. If you go to expressyourselfblackman.com/speaking-brand-deals. That's expressyourselfblackman.com/speaking-brand-deals. If you are looking for a therapist, a Black therapist, and you've had a hard time finding one, you've jumped from therapist to therapist, or you just don't know how to find a therapist, we are teaching a free webinar. It's completely free, taking you from not knowing how to find a therapist, not knowing where to search for therapists, struggling with finding good therapists for you, not knowing what to look for in therapists, teaching you all of those different things, and also giving you the opportunity at the end of the webinar to be connected with one of our safe haven healers who are Black mental health professionals, so that you do not have to go through the struggles of finding a Black therapist alone anymore, right? So if you're interested in that, you want to get connected with a Black mental health professional at the end of the webinar, or you just want to learn how to find a Black therapist by yourself, you can sign up for the free webinar. It's linked in our bio on Instagram and TikTok. You just click that free webinar link once you click the link in our bio and fill out the form. You can also find it on our website at expressyourselfblackman.com/links and fill out the form there for our next webinar session. If you're not interested in any of that, right, but you know someone that may be interested in it, all we ask is that you please share it. If you want some of the merch that we show on the platform all the time, that we're wearing on the platform all the time, you can shop it at shop.expressyourselfblackman.com. And once again, we just want to say thank you so much for watching this episode. Thank you so much for supporting us. Please, if you are on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe, comment. If you're listening to this on an audio platform, please leave a review. It helps us out greatly. Thank you so much for your support. We're wishing you nothing but the best and sending you and your family and your loved ones love and light. Peace.
Sometimes I know you feel like you ain't got nobody to speak to. Shoulder to lean on somebody you could preach to. No, you need to hear it, my brother, I love you. We got way too much to live for.